In a recent interview, which I'll leave a link to in the description below, Froch came out and said that the last man to beat him, Andre Ward, is the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in boxing today. But he went on to say that Gennady Golovkin is not even in the top 10 pound-for-pound. Now, we know that Froch has a habit of trolling his rivals. He likes to do that. We know that he came in the game talking trash about Joe Calzaghe, and that's never really stopped throughout Froch's career. And even after his retirement, he's still talking trash about Calzaghe and trying to downplay his achievements. He did the same with Andre Ward for a while. He obviously did the same with George Groves, and since Groves has been going through bad times, Froch has been kind of turning the knife. He's been doing it a little bit with James DeGale, and obviously Groves and DeGale were giving it back to him as well. So I'm not criticizing Froch for what he's doing. And in fact, over the past year and a half, Froch's persona has actually mellowed a little bit. And rather than just coming off as an arrogant prick, he's actually kind of funny now when he's trolling these other fighters. It's actually tongue in cheek and a twinkle in his eye. It's actually quite funny these days, to be honest with you. I've kind of warmed to Froch as his personality has kind of mellowed and changed. But nonetheless, back to the case at hand. His claim that Ward is #1 pound-for-pound, some people are going to take issue with that, given the fact that Ward hasn't fought any of the top fighters in his own division for a long time. So some people are going to have issue with that. And is that just a case of Froch trying to elevate himself? Because Andre Ward was the last man to beat him, and he beat Froch comprehensively. So if he proclaims Ward to be #1 pound-for-pound, he's actually elevating himself by saying that. Okay, so is it a case of him doing that, or is that his honest opinion? Because there are definitely a hell of a lot of other contenders for that #1 pound-for-pound slot. Well, not a hell of a lot of others, but there are a few others out there who are contenders for that #1 pound-for-pound slot since Mayweather has retired. Now, I've never really been a fan of pound-for-pound myself, but for those of you who are, I'm sure you can make a case for several different fighters being #1 right now. But this Golovkin thing, he says that Golovkin hasn't fought any top opponents, and that's why you can't put him in the top 10 pound-for-pound. I think not putting him in the top 10 pound-for-pound personally, that's a bit harsh. If you don't want to put him top 5 or certainly the #1, definitely I can see why. But not even in the top 10? I don't know. Yes, it is important, obviously, to fight big names. It's important to be beating guys who have got a proven track record of being quality fighters. And Gennady Golovkin hasn't really done that. The guys he's been fighting have been kind of B-level fighters. He ain't fought an A-level guy yet. But he's been walking through these B-level guys. These B-level guys, ever since Golovkin's been champion, haven't been testing him. They haven't been troubling him. There's never been a point in any of his fights so far, the time since he's been champion, where you thought, wow, maybe Golovkin ain't going to win this fight. This is interesting. There's never been even a moment in any of his fights which has been like that. He's just been totally dominating these B-level guys easily. Okay, now a lot of these guys are world level. They're not top tier world level, but they are world level, the guys that Golovkin's been fighting. It's just they're not names and they're not A-level guys. They're not fighters with a legacy, so to speak, a legacy that matters. You know, it's not a Miguel Cotto, for example. You know, it's not an Andre Ward or someone like that. These are just B-level guys. So that's what Froch is saying is the problem with putting Golovkin in the top 10 pound-for-pound. His resume is not so much a who's who list, a who's who list, sorry. It's more of a who's that list. So that's where Froch is coming from. Or is this a case of Froch just downplaying Golovkin because a lot of people think Golovkin could have beaten him? And there's been some, you know, whispers and mumblings and talk coming out of the Golovkin camp that Froch was maybe afraid of them or turned down the fight or didn't fancy it or whatever. Maybe Froch has heard some of these things that the Golovkin camp have been saying, and that this is his way of responding to it, saying, you know what, I've fought top level guys in my career. Why would I duck someone that hasn't even fought anyone you've ever heard of, or anyone that most casual boxing fans would never heard of, the wider public have never heard of? Obviously, we know the guys that Golovkin's fought, but the general public be like, who the hell are these opponents? So this is an interesting statement by Froch, saying that Golovkin's not top 10 pound for pound. Do you agree with it, or do you disagree? If you agree with Froch that Ward is #1 and that Golovkin's not even top 10, tell me why you agree. Drop your reasons and your rationale in the comment section below if you agree with him. If you disagree, tell me why you disagree. All right? Drop them in the comment section below. Be very interested to read and get this discussion going. It's your boy Hatman. I'm out.